In the Gospel of Matthew, the birth of Jesus is a very small, very quiet affair. There are no shepherds abiding in the fields, no angel of the Lord making a sudden, startling appearance, no glory of the Lord shining round about, no heavenly host of angels singing peace on earth, goodwill toward men, no shepherd's mad dash to the manger. All of that is in Luke. In Matthew, the birth of Jesus is mentioned in one verse and one verse only, which says, Joseph had no marital relations with Mary until she had borne a son, and he named him Jesus. She bore a son, he named him Jesus. That's it. That's the story of how the Son of God, the Lord's one and only anointed, came into the world, at least as Matthew tells it. If you hadn't been paying attention, you might have missed it. But someone was paying attention. According to Matthew, there were wise men in the east, magi, who had observed his star at its rising and traveled all the way to Judea to pay him homage. Now, their decision to go to Herod's palace doesn't seem so wise, does it? But they must have assumed that the new king was the son of the old king. That's the way these things usually work. They would have imagined that there had already been some sort of national festival celebrating his birth, and that they, arriving a year and a half after the fact, would have been getting there a little late. They must have been surprised that Herod was surprised, that he seemed to have no earthly knowledge of this heavenly event. After all, they had seen the new king's star. Now, there's been a lot of speculation through the years about what they actually saw. Some people think it was planets coming together in conjunction. Others think it may have been a comet shooting across the sky. Matthew says that it was a star. Whatever it was something that could be seen in the sky, but apparently not something so spectacular that it couldn't be missed. You had to be looking. And these wise men were looking, so that when these two planets drew near to each other, or when this comet traced its spidery path across the sky, or when a new star blazed into existence, they saw it. They took note of it. They pondered its significance. They were good at that sort of thing, apparently. They were wise men, after all. They were able to interpret the appearance of this new star in a way that led them into the shining presence of God. Today we celebrate Epiphany, a word that means literally to shine upon. When I try to explain that word to children, I often tell them that if I hear a noise behind my house in the middle of the night, I might get up out of bed to go and see what it is. I might take a flashlight and shine it on whatever is out there making the noise. I might find that it's a stray dog or a raccoon that has gotten into my trash cans. But as soon as the light hits it, I know that's what it is, making all that racket. And that is an epiphany. What was hidden before has been revealed. The light has shined upon it. On the Sunday closest to Epiphany, January the 6th, we read the story of the wise men, because it is the story of that time when some starlight shined on the little town of Bethlehem and revealed what had been hidden. It's interesting, isn't it, that in Matthew's Gospel, God does this incredible thing, but does it so discreetly that people who were living right there in Bethlehem missed it. That King Herod, with all his secret service officers and all his security advisors, missed it. It was God's little secret. And only the wise men who were searching the skies, looking for signs, were able to tell that God was up to something. Not everyone is so good at reading the signs, and not everyone is so good at seeing them. But I wonder if what keeps us from seeing the signs is not that they aren't there, but that we aren't looking. I remember when a colleague in that first little town where I worked as a pastor got a call from another church asking if he would consider coming to that place and being their pastor. He had been pastor of the Christian church in Newcastle, Kentucky for 17 years. He thought he was there for life. But suddenly there was this call from a church in Minnesota asking if he would think it over, if he would pray about it. He did pray about it, and he talked about it. When the pastors in town got together for coffee once a week, he would tell us about the things that had been going on in his life, and sometimes he would say, "I think maybe that was a sign, don't you?" I remember that it struck me as funny that he was suddenly seeing signs everywhere when he hadn't seen signs before. One morning he told us, on my way here today, I came up the hill, and when I got to the light at the top of the hill, it was green. That light is never green for me. It's always red. But this morning, it was green. I think that might be a sign. I think God is giving me the green light. He talked about another time when he had been to visit one of his members in the hospital who was very sick and close to death. And when he walked into the room, this church member looked at him and said, "Pastor, I thought I might never see you again." Now, you might interpret that to mean that the man was very sick. He was at the point of death. He thought he might die and never again see his pastor in this life. But if you were his pastor and you were contemplating a call to another church and you walked into a room and one of your members said, "I thought I would never see you again," you might take that as a sign. My colleague did take it as a sign. He moved to that other church and we never saw him in Newcastle again. I thought of that a few years later. I was on my way to the hospital to visit someone an hour away, and I wondered if I would see signs if I looked for them. So I began to look. And it won't surprise you that I began to see signs everywhere, some of them quite meaningful. I can't remember all the things I saw, but it got to be a long list. At first I was doing it almost as a game. But the longer I kept it up, the more I began to believe that maybe God was playing a game with me or with all of us, that there really are signs of God's presence and activity all around us, but we never take the time to notice. Maybe this is God's little secret, that He is with us all the time, showing Himself in any number of ways, that epiphanies are exploding all around us like fireworks on the 4th of July, but because we are too busy doing our Christmas shopping or playing with our new toys or watching the ball drop on New Year's Eve, we miss them.